Welcome to this webinar, which will introduce you to SWISSUbase, our new online platform for sharing and accessing data. I'm Alexandra Stam. I'm leading the data management support group at FORCE within the data archive unit. I will be presenting today together with my colleague Stefan Burley, who is the project leader of SWISSUbase. So I will start by saying a few words about FORCE and our services and how we transitioned from FORCEbase, our previous platform, to SWISSUbase. My colleague Stefan Burley will then guide you through SWISSUbase and tell you what's new and unique about it. We will then finish the presentation with a short demo of some of the key features of SWISSUbase. So let's start with a few words about FORCE, the Swiss Center of Expertise in the Social Sciences. We are a research infrastructure of national scope established in 2008 and funded almost entirely by the Swiss National Science Foundation. We are located at the University of Lausanne, but we serve the entire social science research community in Switzerland. Very briefly, a few words on what we do. So FORCE is involved in a wide range of activities, which include the provision of infrastructure, especially data archiving and dissemination service, data production, so we conduct national surveys and run the Swiss edition of large international surveys, such as, for example, the European Social Survey. We are also conducting research, be it methodological, thematic, or epistemological. In line with our various domains of activity, we are also involved in many national and international collaborative projects. Last but not least, we develop cutting-edge tools such as our new online data sharing platform, SWISSUbase. So let me say a few words about our services with respect to data sharing and data management. We facilitate data archiving and long-term preservation of both quantitative and qualitative data following international best practice. We provide access to data and research information to the research community for both data reuse and for teaching as well. And we provide data management support by means of trainings, consultancy, and the development of support materials. The support we provide addresses various data management topics, which goes from data management planning considerations before the project even started to key data management practices throughout the project's life cycle, such as anonymization, gaining consent, or ethical considerations. And of course, we also help researchers with archiving and sharing of their research data. So, as you can see from this picture, there's a whole team at the FORCE Data Archive to assist you with any questions you may have with respect to archiving, accessing data, and data management. So do not hesitate to get in touch with us. So now a few words about the context of open research data in Switzerland. So as a result of the open data movement, there's been new requirements from funders, from institutions, from journals. So funders, for example, increasingly require data management plans to be submitted at the time of the research proposal and also expect researchers to share their data in fair repositories. A growing number of research institutions also require data management plans and the sharing of research data. And more recently, there's also been a growing tendency for scientific journals to require the sharing of the data that underlies the publications. So, to satisfy all these requirements, there are different solutions available or types of repositories. So, for example, there are trusted domain-specific repositories, institutional repositories, general purpose repositories, or journal supplementary material services. Some repositories are better than others. We recommend that you privilege domain-specific repositories or institutional repositories. These are more likely to accept complete data sets and not just the data sets underlying publications. They also include rich metadata, offer long-term preservation, search and dissemination facilities. They often help you to promote your data, and they allow for access control, which is particularly important when it comes to sensitive data. With respect to the social sciences, FORCE offers a trusted domain-specific repository, SWISSUbase, which is modeled in large part on our previous FORCE-based solution. I will now turn over to Stefan, who will tell you all about SWISSUbase.
Thank you, Alexandra, for the introduction. My name is Stefan Bürli, and I'm the project leader and very happy to introduce you to SWISSUbase. SWISSUbase is a new research data platform to answer the call for a flexible, national, multidisciplinary data repository and archiving solution. SWISSUbase is unique from other data archiving solutions. It is multidisciplinary with rich, discipline-specific metadata that are made to measure to suit the needs of different research communities. It is a comprehensive platform to promote the long-term archiving, preservation, and reuse of Swiss research data and metadata. Swiss research data includes data collected in Switzerland, about Switzerland, but also by Swiss researchers that collect data abroad. You may be familiar with SWISSUbase for the social sciences, but it goes beyond FORCE and the social sciences. SWISSUbase is actually a consortium which has been built among FORCE, the University of Zurich, and the University of Lausanne. DASH, the Swiss Data and Service Center for the Humanities, will also be joining soon. We launched the platform for the social sciences community in December last year, with a specific metadata schema and data curators for the social sciences that you may be familiar with from FORCEbase. The University of Zurich will curate data for the linguistics community in Switzerland, that is, the members of the Clarin Switzerland Consortium, based on a metadata schema specifically for linguistics. The exact launch date has not yet been confirmed, but as soon as we have confirmation, it will be communicated to the linguistics community. The University of Lausanne will use the general schema to start, meaning it will be available to various disciplines at UNIL. The exact launch date will also be communicated once confirmed. The focus of the presentation today is social sciences, but if you would like information on other disciplines or institutions, please contact us directly. We will share our contact information at the end of the webinar. For the social sciences, the current catalog in SWISSUbase contains more than 11,000 studies and over 800 datasets. You can find essentially quantitative but also qualitative data, recent and older studies, and data from large national and international surveys and also from smaller regional surveys. There are many features that set SWISSUbase apart from other data deposit solutions. Some of these include the availability of a general and of discipline-specific metadata schemas. The data is hosted on Swiss servers, namely at Switch, to ensure data protection. The data you deposit is curated by archiving experts in the social sciences. We offer a multilingual user interface in English, French, and German, and metadata can be entered in those 3 languages plus in Italian. SWISSUbase is totally free of charge for researchers to both deposit and access data. We offer personal support and consulting services for data producers and data consumers alike. SWISSUbase is compliant with the FAIR principles required by the major funding institutions such as the SNF, and also follows international standards for metadata and archiving. This means that your data will be findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable in the long term. In addition to the interesting features, it's also important to tell you what SWISSUbase is not. It is not a place to do a quick and dirty deposit of your data and then forget about it without paying attention to their sustainable reusability and preservation in the long term. It is not a virtual research environment where you produce or collect data, nor a live archive with continually changing data. It is also not a virtual collaborative workspace where you work on data together, but rather a space where you can manage the data that are ready for deposit. I'd like to give you more specific details about the benefits for the data producers among you who would like to deposit their data. As mentioned before, it is fair and OIAS compliant and of course non-commercial. It allows you to share your data, but also to control or restrict access to your data if needed. The data can be shared as openly as possible or as restricted as necessary. SWISSUbase provides standardized citations as well as DOIs as persistent identifiers for your data to ensure easy and long-term citability. With our next release planned for the beginning of May, you will also be able to reserve DOIs for your data before it's being published. SWISSUbase also provides download statistics for your data and ensures protection and visibility for your data. And, as said before, it's free for researchers to deposit and access data and metadata. There are also benefits for those of you looking to find, download, and reuse data. Some of these benefits include a large online public catalog with faceted search functionalities, professional human service to assist you in finding and reusing the data. You can be assured that the data that you find has been checked for quality and reusability. You will be notified by email when new versions of datasets that you've downloaded have been made available. And of course, we provide user guides and webinars for guidance. A major new feature that we have added are the Creative Commons licenses, under which the data can be openly shared, copied, redistributed, without having to log into SWISSUbase. This allows those that access your data to remix, transform, and build upon existing data for any purpose. Secondly, we offer connectivity and interoperability with relevant European research infrastructure consortium catalogs, such as the CESTAC data catalog for the social sciences. You may be wondering what's unique about SWISSUbase compared to other open access repositories and tools. In addition to some of the features already mentioned, what really makes SWISSUbase unique is the personal services available from our team of experts in data management and archiving. The Force Data Archive service is a living part of SWISSUbase and there to help you throughout the research data lifecycle. As mentioned earlier by Alexandra, the Data Management Services team can assist you in data management planning, anonymization techniques, ethical issues, documentation, archiving, structuring, or sharing of the data, just to name a few examples. And once your data is deposited in SWISSUbase, curation of the data is performed by professional archivists. I'll give you a few more details on the process in just a moment. As users of SWISSUbase, your data archive service offers live and online trainings, user guides, and personal support if you need any help at any point in the data deposit, download, and reuse process. Now, to give you a few more details about the deposit process. What happens when I deposit my data? This graphic details the full process from the data deposit by the producers to data curation by a Force Data Archive and then to data consumers accessing your data. I want to focus on what happens after you deposit your data. Once your study, dataset, and files are submitted, your data curators at Force will be notified and will begin the archiving process. The archivist will, first, review your study from the perspective of the researcher accessing the data, to make sure that the context of your study is clear and that the metadata, data, and documentation are complete. They will ensure that the data is clean, properly labeled, make sure that participant identities are protected, and that the file formats are readable. They work directly with you to ensure your dataset will be findable, understandable, and reusable for future data consumers. The data archive assumes the long-term responsibility for accessibility to your data and will guide you with regards to the optimal file preservation format, so that even if softwares change, the dataset will be readable with newly available softwares. This is not the case in many other common repositories. There is also a versioning process for data curation when updates are made to data, metadata, or documentation that has already been submitted, curated, and published. Lastly, what happens after your data is curated and published by the archive service? Your study data and metadata will be consolidated in a dissemination package, and it will appear in the SWISSUbase online catalog. As a data producer, you can select exactly the license and access control that fits the level of accessibility to your data that you desire. As I mentioned before, your data will be visible and accessible on the European level, through the CESTA Common Catalog, for example, or the Clarin Virtual Language Observatory. Now, I would like to give you a small demo just to highlight a few key features and main workflows of SWISSUbase. Once you're connected, you can go to your account at the top right and edit your profile. You can link your ORCID ID to it, subscribe or unsubscribe from the newsletter. When you go back to the home page, you see that you have 3 tabs at the top. The first one is the catalog. You can go ahead and do free text search right here and then get the results. If you're only interested in studies with datasets, you can filter on those right here. Then, of course, you can go have a look at the study if it suits your needs and eventually download the dataset. In the second tab, you can see your studies, all the studies that you are linked to. And on the left, you see the different statuses with regards to the studies that you're linked to. On the right, you can see your downloads. Everything that you have already downloaded on SWISSUbase will be visible right here. You can also see the different statuses of the contracts that are ongoing. If your contract has expired, you can renew it at the top right. If, on the other hand, your download is still valid, you can end the contract before it's actually expiring. Now let's go create a new study. So I go to my studies and click on Create a New Study. At this point, you just have to enter a title, the study description language, and by default, your user is linked to the study that you're about to create by giving you the role of principal investigator and submission rights by default. So that's how you create a study. For time purposes, however, I will use one that I've already created and show you through the different steps of the deposit workflow. On the study level, you get an overview, and you can there actually link institutions to your project. For example, I would like to link the Institute of Sociology at the University of Zurich, and search it, select it, and then it appears. As a second step, I would like to add an author, for example, my colleague Alexandra Stamm, and link her to the project. At this point, I can actually attribute different roles to my colleagues, like scientific collaborator, principal investigator. I can attribute an institution to that person, as well as attribute different permission levels on the data and the metadata of the study. Then, of course, we have main disciplines, the status of the study, as well as beginning and end date. When I go to general description, we have period, geographical space, of course an abstract. You can add information about the funding. On the publications, you can actually import directly bibliographic references that you have previously exported from EndNotes or Zotero as a RIS or a text file. You can just import either by dragging or dropping, or you can browse the files. For example, this webinar Zotero 2 RIS file, open it, and it will directly import it according to the different types of publications or unpublished documents. Then the methods are the social science specific block where you can add different method descriptions as free text, or you can add method instruments that you can add repeatedly, as for example, analysis of content, laboratory experiment, or for example, qualitative interviews. Then you would like to add a data set, so you go to the data set level. You add a data set. I've already done this in this case, so you go and you can actually edit the description, you can enter a description, you can set an embargo date, by when the date will be published, and you will have the standardized citation provided by SWISSUbase. You can also, on this level, define the access to your data. You can attribute, for example, special restrictions, like none, academic research on teaching, or academic research only. Or you can ask for prior agreement of the author so that the data consumer would actually have to submit a request to the data producer. Then again, social science specific are the collection modes. In this case, you can add different data types, time methods, media, and specify who the data collector is. Then at the end, you would actually add the file, the raw data file. So when you have the raw data file, again, there's some general description of the data file, and then you can have information about the data collection procedure, as well as variables and values within the data file. Then, of course, you can upload the data file either by dragging or dropping or browsing files on your computer. Once you've uploaded the data file, you go to Contracts on the left navigation tab. Here you can see the deposit contract between the data producer and FORCE. In the second step, you actually can define the usage license, which means under which conditions your dataset is deposited and shared. You can edit it. Here you can actually choose between a closed contract or the different Creative Commons licenses. Each time you would have a short description of the license, as well as here. And you can select the license that most coherently suits your data. Once you have made your choice, you can deposit the data set. You will go to a stepper which guides you through the different conditions that have to be fulfilled in order to deposit your data set. So here you can see that actually there's one condition on study level that has not been fulfilled, so you can just update this and submit the study. The study has been successfully submitted. Now if you go back to the data set, you can deposit the data set. So you go again through the stepper, you see that everything on study level is fulfilled. On data set, we still have to update actually the access documentation. So on this part, I would set it to none, special permission, to none, and save. Now I can deposit the data set because all conditions have been fulfilled. I can read and accept the deposit contract, and then the usage license that I have chosen just before, and I can deposit the data set. From this part on, the data curation team will take over and do the whole curation of the data set before actually publishing it. A few last closing words. You'll find here the SWISSUbase access, in addition to the contact points for questions about SWISSUbase or about the FORCE Data Archive service. We hope you begin to discover SWISSUbase soon and share it with your colleagues. Thank you very much.